We're definitely living in an age of a lot of information. I had a personal experience with this when I first started out as a television performer in '93, and there was a lot of noise just about me taking over this television show and who is this guy. And every day I would get, once a week, we'd get these ratings about how we did the week before, and sometimes people would say, you know, your number dropped a little bit, or you didn't start with as many viewers, or you lost some, so maybe you shouldn't do that comedy piece at the beginning of the show. And I would be thinking, that comedy piece felt good, and the audience liked it, and it felt good. And they'd say, yeah, you probably shouldn't do that. It took a while, and I'm not in your field, but at one point, I found out that the sample size for a show that's on at 12:35 at night, and I don't know if it's changed now, but the sample size was tiny for the Nielsen rating. So my rating was being affected by, I don't know, 3 people. The flu's going around, and 3 people didn't feel well.
Or maybe you had a Lakers game that went into overtime.
Right, exactly. There were things, and I thought, at a certain point, I said, I'm getting too much noise. What I need to really listen to is what feels right to me. That felt funny, that felt good, there was a good flow. But I became very aware at that point that I was getting information that was not helping me. It was not making the show better. It wasn't.
Well, and look, and believe me, there are times when if information is misleading and used to make bad decisions, then it can be worse than no information, right? I think the way that that education is occurring nowadays, where you have a lot of teachers who are teaching to these standardized tests now, right, which are not necessarily tests developed to improve critical thinking skills, right, or analytical skills, but instead to memorize a bunch of facts and so forth, right? So now you have these objective measurements of teacher performance that don't necessarily benefit either the teachers or the children as much.
It's the same thing you talk about in your book in the financial sector. Nobody thought about this at the time. I certainly didn't know about it. I didn't know that Moody's and Standard & Poor's were being paid, that they were making money to give their ratings, and that the greater volume of rating that they gave, the more money they would make. It's the same thing you say. Once the system is tainted, gee, if we can get kids to answer these questions correctly on a standardized test, it's better for our school and for our jobs.
Right.
It's the same thing. All these mortgage-backed securities are getting AAA ratings, but because it benefits the ratings companies to do that. And so what happened was the information we were getting, and like a sap, I thought, that's AAA rated. I trust.
Yeah.
We're all become children at a certain point. I trust that dad or mom is taking care of stuff. I thought a AAA rating was really vetted. We now know that was nothing could be further from the truth.
And it's tricky. I mean, we're learning that we have to be skeptical of a lot of different institutions, right, including government and business and many different things, right? And at what point can you have healthy skepticism without becoming a conspiracy theorist kind of nutcase, right? But I think if people start from the position of not taking things at face value, right, up to a point at least, right? When you hear something that a political reporter says that they heard from a campaign, like that's a good example of something which you shouldn't necessarily take at face value. It's intended as spin. Yes, the best reporters can sort through that and give you some nugget of truth. But people are much too willing to take dubious information or to take unprecedented situations and not really kind of apply their own filter of common sense and so forth.
Well, here's the bigger problem. I don't know what your feeling is on Nicholas Taleb, but when I started reading him a while ago, he introduced me to this idea that seemed attractive to me, which is that the human brain is inherently flawed, you know. And I found it helpful to remember that we are flawed. Our thinking is flawed, that our brain, and that we are constantly, and I think this is a big part of your work, is working to counteract the flaws of the human brain.
Yeah.
That we love to see patterns, even if there aren't patterns there.
Yeah.
We love, there are certain ways of thinking that really benefited us when we were trying to escape a leopard, when we were hiding in a cave. Not so much now. Now it can get us into trouble. And so it's trying to counteract the organic flaws that are in our mind.
Well, look, I mean,
do you subscribe to that?
Oh, absolutely, right? I mean, human beings are very smart creatures, right? But relative to the overall amount of information in the universe, right? I mean, that's the kind of crazy thing about it, right? Someone says, well, my subjective point of view. It's truthful and you guys are all wrong, right? I mean, how can you say that when you're just one person that's like literally this gigantic universe, right? It demands, I think, some humility. And you look at the way we did things, how we treat disease 300 years ago with leeches or whatever now, right? And probably 300 years from now, they'll think that chemotherapy is something incredibly
Barbaric.
And primitive, where you make someone sick in order to make them healthy again, right? It'll be seen as barbaric potentially. And if you follow the history of knowledge and the history of science, then it is humbling. As cool as we think that our age is now, what I can guarantee you is that we're going to have more and more technological progress in ways that we frankly can't anticipate very well.